Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of Eye of the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, and King Dio, not to mention the upcoming Lowen Fray. Please check out BlackCatBooks.org for more information on that. And today we want to talk about manga. We need to talk about manga, specifically good manga, such as Attack on Titan, versus bad manga, such as Beastars. Now, with Attack on Titan ending, and having finished it and experiencing the fan reaction for myself, I can 100% tell you that people who hate the ending, people like Mr. Medicare, all of 4chan, I'm sure people on Twitter, I'm sure there are people on subreddits, anyone who hates the ending is a complete shitter. They have no idea what they're talking about. They don't appreciate Attack on Titan. They don't appreciate true high art. They don't appreciate good manga. Oh, why are you upset? Because Eren wasn't the father. What does that matter? How does that contribute to the plot at all? Historia is a non-character after Uprising. Again, there are things to criticize Attack on Titan for. Two very major things that I pointed out as early as the female Titan arc, right? The story is convoluted as fuck. It's sometimes really difficult to understand what's going on. And two, it doesn't really do a good job establishing character motivations. This was apparent with with Reiner's weird personality shift, with some of the weird decisions, how they reveal certain things, the Titan shifters and their morality and who they're aligned with and why they're doing what they're doing, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to Attack on Titan. You can argue that Attack on Titan didn't do certain things very well. I would argue that Attack on Titan didn't do certain things very well. But whilst I am a bit reasonable about it, while saying that I wish they had done this better, I wish they had adjusted this, I wish they had tweaked things a little bit more, maybe made the manga a little bit longer to explain certain things. There are things there are things hypothetically that could have gone a little bit better, I think. That doesn't ruin the manga, right? As a whole, I still really appreciate what the manga is and what it stands for. As a whole, I still think Attack on Titan is a great manga. Definitely the best in the past decade. I can't think of anything else that has captured so many people and just so many of our imaginations. It was a gripping original epic that I think is going to remain relevant for years. I still see people talking about it. It's still very, very relevant, and I could still see it being continue being popular well into the future. I think it is a classic in the making, and I think too many people are too hard on it at this point in time. It is going to die down eventually, but at the moment, there are a lot of people who are upset that I think that it ended as opposed to the actual ending. So that's my thoughts. Attack on Titan is great manga, right? But contrast that with how I feel about Beastars, the biggest disappointment I think I experienced throughout all of 2021. Right, I've been reading all sorts of great manga, from One Piece to fucking One Punch Man to let's see, what else have I been reading this year? I did read Attack on Titan. Baki, I think I like better than this a little bit. What else did I fucking read this year? I'll have to look at my thing. But out of all of the manga I did read this year, legit all of it, I don't think any of them built me up and tore me down as much as Beastars. I have never seen something that is so high quality in certain areas, with the artwork, with character-to-character interactions, with build up to some big dramatic event. I've never seen something handle so many things so well just completely collapse when it actually matters. Beastars cannot handle like actually finishing an arc, right? Like, Beastars cannot like climax. Like, Beastars cannot reach a satisfying conclusion to any of its plot lines. Like, there is not a single plot line in Beastars that's resolved satisfactorily. Like, all of them are pure shit, and they like they go into like different plots like in a complete shit fashion. Like, it is unbelievable like how infuriating all of these decisions are. Like, not most of them, not some of them, like legit all of them are, especially like later on. Like, volume 15, 1 stars for me. Like, complete horse shit. Complete yah shit. Like, that was completely reprehensible. Like, I have no idea how they ever thought that was a good idea. And there are like 6 more volumes of this shit. Right? Like, apparently this like serial killer arc just goes on forever. Essentially, Attack on Titan like established an idea, built up on it, gave us twists and turns, but like delivered us to like a place where you can like reasonably follow along with how exactly we got here, right? With Beastars, it established a setting, it established a character, and then it feels like it does everything in its power to like the shit on the characters and the world in every conceivable way, to the point where like it doesn't even make any sense, right? Like, all the things that work about Beastars, like especially early Beastars, they just kind of they just keep like kind of melding together to the point where like you really start to wonder why you were even invested. I think a really good example of that is kind of Legoshi's, right? You know, a character that I actually generally liked early on, right? With like, oh man, he's a wolf, like living among these herbivores, and he's like struggling with his identity in this society where like herbivores or carnivores are like somewhat segregated because of their differing natures. Like, herbivores are scared of carnivores because they're prey, and like you really think that like they're going to do something with that concept, right? And in a lot of ways they do too much of it, right? Like, in a lot of ways it kind of feels like the entire world of Beastars revolves around this ridiculous concept that like Beastars keeps bringing up so many unanswerable like moral conundrums and like social conundrums that what ends up happening is that like the entire world of Beastars comes off as like dysfunctional and like unsustainable as fuck. Like, reading this shit, I don't believe that the world of Beastars could exist. I think this is the first time in any piece of media where like I felt this way, where like I genuinely I feel like the way like interspecies relationships are dealt with, are portrayed in Beastars. Now, I'm not even talking about like the sex shit, which is an issue in and of itself, but like just interacting with other species in general in Beastars, like you really get the impression that no one, absolutely no one, would want a desegregated society in this setting. Like, the entire idea of just like herbivores and carnivores just putting themselves in these situations, it just doesn't make any sense. Like it's something that you would have, either you would want like the carnivores would want the herbivores to be subjugated and like used for food, right? As is the natural way. Or herbivores would want like all the carnivores exterminated. Like, that's it. Like, that's what it would boil down to, I think. And yet somehow, like, the actual plot is trying to convince us that like not only are interspecies relationships possible, they're also desirable. despite like all the ridiculous evidence to the contrary, like culminating, I think, in like a half gazelle, half leopard, like abomination, like a serial killer abomination, who completely sucks, by the way. That's such a cool concept, I think. Like I can totally see what like the author was going for with this idea, but like I've never seen a concept like this. Something that like actually does make sense, like in the setting of Beastars, just kind of fail so hard. And I think like analyzing this is going to be like a video in and of itself. Like what makes Melon such a terrible antagonist, but because I really can't put it into words at this point. He's only just been introduced, but I hate his methods. I hate I hate how he gets out of situations. I hate like Legoshi being a retard. Like Yaya too, for like leaving Legoshi alone with him. Like what the fuck was that all about? Oh, I'm gonna call in reinforcements. Just stay there. That was just obvious. That was so contrived. It was just so ridiculous. Like, it was strange too, right? Because I think I said like before that volumes 13 and 14 generally were actually pretty high quality, right? Like volumes 13 and 14 actually felt like they actually kind of made a major recovery from the shit that happened in volume 12, which I also hated. Like with like Legoshi eating Louis' leg. That was fucking retarded. Like volume 13 and 14, like, you know, introduce new characters, new settings, new ideas, like life outside of the academy, right? Which we already saw too much of. Didn't care for the academy. I was sick of that shit by like volume 3. Like, I'm glad to be out of the academy. Legoshi's out in the world and he's interacting with like other people, right? People with like interesting backgrounds that inevitably get dropped for no reason. That is another thing about like Beastars compared to Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan like generally like introduces characters and like uses them in like really interesting, unique ways, even if they're 2-bit characters, especially if they're 2-bit characters. Who the fuck would have thought that like that random ass girl that Sasha saved in like what arc was that? I want to say like Clash of the Titans arc. Like that random ass fucking girl that Sasha saved. Who would have thought she possibly would have come back, become relevant, and like influenced sort of been a major player, and not really necessarily a major player. Like I would say like one of the better characters like post time skip, right? Can't remember that girl's name. Shit. Like love that chick. She is legit great. Legit like If Gabby is like the worst girl in Attack on Titan, well, the worst character, I should say. Like worst girl makes it sound like I'm talking like sexually, like that's just not like best girl means waifu. Like that's not really what I mean. Best character. If the worst character is Gabby, like the best character is like that random blonde chick because she really does a really good job, better than I think any character, like on either side of the conflict or any side of the conflict, I should say, who really does a brilliant job just explaining why the core nature of like Marley's problem with like Paradise is completely retarded. Like this random ass little girl just BTFOs Marley's entire anti-white rhetoric. Like shit. It's great. Again, that's one of the reasons why I love there are post time skip is absolutely worth reading in spite of all the problems, in which they do execute a lot of things really well. They do build up to something grander. They do have a lot of like grand revelations and like just a lot of positive aspects to it in spite of all the problems, right? And Beastars really doesn't, right? Like Beastars just constantly makes poor decision after poor decision, is unable to change or grow, or introduce like any meaningful conflicts, like say challenging the idea of Haru's and Legoshi's relationship, because I've mentioned this several times in the past, and I think it means bringing up now is that like it's very Twilight-ish in this presentation, where like the author obviously wants Legoshi and Haru to be together. Like Haru is obviously designed to be Legoshi's love interest and probably the self-insert character of the author. I'm like almost 100% sure of that. Well, I am 100% sure of that, but obviously the self-insert character of the author. And like because of Haru's presence, right, Legoshi isn't allowed to have any positive relationship with a woman at all, right? Because what happened with Juno? Everyone fucking wanted him to be with Juno. What happened with the sheep? Everyone wanted him to be with the fucking sheep. Because those characters are actual characters. They aren't fucking designed to be like some wish fulfillment nonsense, right? Like they actually have conflicts with Legoshi. They have arguments. Like they treat him like an actual fucking person, as the Haru, as opposed to Haru who doesn't. Right, like to this day, I have no idea why Haru is so invested with so into Legoshi at all. Like because he saved her from the Lion Mafia. Who gives a shit? Like I had a really bad first impression of Haru, like being such a turbo thought, and like that hasn't changed over 15 volumes of this shit. Like this character has had no impact on the plot at all, other than like being a supposed like reason for Legoshi to like want to protect herbivores, when like the murder of his fucking friend should have been the primary motivator. Like that's my view on it, right? Like that's what Beastars should have been about. All of Sherrington Academy should have been about Legoshi getting to the bottom of Ten's murder, right? Something that didn't happen until like volume 12, right? That really should have condensed into like the first several volumes. And then they could have gone into the Lion Mafia shit. And then they could have gone into like the leg eating shit, like trying to make the leg eating sound plausible. Like personally, I think they should have scrapped the idea in general because it was so retarded. But then going to like the wider world, and then kind of like dealing with like people like Melon, like have Melon be like a one-off villain, but I like there's really nothing keeping me invested in Beastars other than the fact that I find myself fascinated with seeing how this all ends, because like it's just gonna keep getting worse and worse. I know that now. The good parts of Beastars are way behind me. So now I gotta deal with like what happens afterward, like what happens to the characters in the final couple of volumes. I have no idea. I really don't. I have a general idea of how it ends, like which I have a lot to say about if that's true, but I don't want to like comment on that. Like after like the whole like Aaron got Historia pregnant thing, I'm not gonna take like speculation on like future plot lines in manga seriously ever again, because all of you are fucking retarded. Like I'm seeing people like on like 4chan trying to say that like, oh man, Invisible Girl is like betraying like Class 1A to All for One, which is just in My Hero Academia. It's just like fucking really, like that would be like hilarious if true, like because Invisible Girl is best girl, right? But just there is no way that's true. Like remember back like in Dragon Ball Super when people were speculating that like Goten, that Goku Black was actually future Goten from like future Trunks' timeline, who embraced his Saiyan heritage. It was just like some of the shit that like people come up with is absolutely wild, and like honestly better than like what the actual creators come up with, but yeah, it's not gonna happen. So like why speculate to that extent? You know what I mean? Like why why put myself out there if I'm just gonna make myself look retarded? I'm sure I've made myself look retarded with talking about that Eren and Historia in like earlier Attack on Titan videos, because I think in Uprising I was just like, oh yeah, I could totally see it happening at this point. And then what happens? They don't have any meaningful moments together after that, which is again like a disappointment. But Attack on Titan doesn't handle relationships well in general. I mean, that's arguably not the focus. But I am sick and tired of these like dark fantasy shit, like fucking over our protagonists when it comes to like romance. Like, who cares if the world sucks? Like, find a girl, like get married, have kids. Like, what's the big deal? Like, what's the problem? Like, I mean, I guess Historia did it, but shit. But okay. So yeah, I think if Attack on Titan truly was as terrible as people make it out to be, you wouldn't care as much about it as you do, right? Like, I'll talk about like how disappointed I am with Beastars, right? But like, it's not that big of a deal for me. It's not something I like obsess over. I think I've seen like one 4chan thread talking about this, seeing like how many people agree with me about Beastars' decline in quality. As the series went on, it's a weird roller coaster ride. Like I think Attack on Titan will hold up with time, and I think Beastars, because of its lack of quality, is going to be forgotten as soon as the animated adaptation finishes its run.